Hello all you wonderful people watching. Thank you for coming to my channel and watching my video. I really appreciate it. And I know it's March, but this is my first video of 2021, so I just wanted to say Happy New Year. Thank you for being here. But quickly before I do get into it, I just want to let you know there is another version of this video with just music in case you're not into like talky videos, which this one is going to be. So yeah, if chatty videos aren't your bag, I'll put the link below to the one with music. So yeah, it was never my intention to have so much time between videos because my last one was in December last year, but to be honest, my head hasn't been in the right place for doing a lot of things, and that includes making YouTube videos. And I know I'm not at all at that level where I need to be making apologies for not putting videos up, and I only really average about 20 views of videos in like the first day of it being online. But I guess I'm more apologizing to myself because I gave myself some intentions to create and do things, but I've not been able to achieve that because I'm just so exhausted all the time. I don't have the energy, and I accidentally deleted all of my notes from my old phone with my ideas on for YouTube videos, so now I have to start again. And I also really want to open an online store selling things that I've made, and it's just all taking up so much time, and I'm just feeling really overwhelmed. So I've just got to remind myself that it's perfectly okay to stick to working at my own pace. Like, I have to prioritize my actual day job, and obviously I'd love to get to the point where I'd be earning money from YouTube. Like, there's no one uploading videos to this platform that doesn't eventually want to do that. But like, this is the very early stages, so warm welcome if you're here now. Thank you for being here. In some exciting news on that front, I've got 72 subscribers, and I'm so excited about that. If you're a subscriber and you're watching this, please leave me a comment below saying hi. I'd really love to get to know you better. Oh, I mentioned my last video just before, and in that one I did do a giveaway for a set of Marley and Marley pins, and I did leave a comment replying to the person who picked as a winner, but they've not got back to me yet. So Rebecca Brower, I'm sorry I can't pronounce your last name. If you're watching, please leave me a comment so I can like get in touch and like give you these brooches. I'm ready to go. I'm really excited to get them to you. So on to the actual video. Right at the beginning, you'll have seen me pull out like a little folder of drawings. In March 2018, I decided to set myself a challenge of drawing a portrait a day. My theatre group had made plans to do the Addams Family musical that October, and I was obsessing over it. So I channeled my creativity into doing some like character studies of 4 of the family members. So I did some Gomez, Morticia, Uncle, Fester, and Wednesday portraits. It was basically just pictures of actors who have played those roles both on stage and on screen. Anyway, I was getting super into these portraits, and I realised that my technique was becoming more streamlined, and the more I did these portraits, the happier I was feeling about the end result, mostly. So I decided that since we were months off from starting the rehearsals for the Addams Family, and my levels of obsession were getting a little unhealthy, that I would focus that energy and do a portrait a day challenge featuring actors from my favourite films. I also threw in some Muppets for good measure. Oh, and once you've watched the video, go back to the beginning and see if you can figure out what films these actors are from. And also you'll notice that I didn't really get very close to finishing a lot of them. In fact, I just put in the bare minimum for them, just getting enough work done that you can hopefully tell who they are. And 3 years later, the guilt has finally eaten me up inside, and I have finished off my Judy Garland portrait, finally. For anyone curious, the reference I'm working on is from some publicity shots for a Judy Garland film called Presenting Lily Mars. It's not like the best film going, and the story is a little bit lacking, for a better word, but I love the songs in it, and it really showcases Judy's star power. In fact, all the actors in it are really amazing. Basically, it's a story about a young girl who really wants to become an actress, and she finds out that her neighbour's son, who is a Broadway producer, is coming back to town to visit his mother. So she hatches a few plots to try and get him to notice her talents. She's like the best actress from her high school, and to try and get him to take a chance on her. I definitely recommend watching it, and I've put a link to one of the songs from the movie in the description below. So by now you've read the title of the video and you might be thinking, that must be clickbait. You must have had lessons because you can draw. And I swear I have never had one formal lesson in drawing. I didn't go to art school, I dropped out of education when I was 17, and while I do have an art GCSE, I already knew how to draw before I even started it. Over the years since dropping out, I worked at getting better at trying to do realism through still life and portraits by watching other people's techniques on YouTube, and that's pretty much it. I know I'm not the best, but if there's one thing I feel like 80%-ish secure about, it's my ability to draw realism, and I'm pretty much self-taught. I remember the first time I watched something that was about teaching people to draw. This was like, I think it was the late 90s. Does anyone remember the TV show Smart? When I was a kid, there was 2 art shows on TV, Smart or Art Attack, and you were kind of one of the other, and I was definitely more of a Smart kid. They had an artist on there called Mark Spate, and to be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of his. He did a lot of cartoons and caricatures, and I really liked realism. But there was one particular episode, I think I was like 11 or so this would have been like early 2000s, and I was sat watching with my little college drawing set that I'd been given for Christmas, and a viewer had sent in a request for Mark to do a segment on realism, and obviously I was super interested, like, it's what I wanted to learn to do. So he brought out a doll's house, and I think I remember him saying he was using that as a prop, as everyone knows what a house looks like. Like, we've all seen pictures of a classic suburban house, so we should all recognise a drawing of a house if we were to see one, and so theoretically we should all be able to draw one ourselves, right? So it's been like 20 years since I've seen this episode, but I seem to remember that he had the camera stay on the doll's house for a minute or so, and he asks everyone at home to take the time to draw the house. And once the time was up, he starts talking about what he expected some of the people watching at home to have drawn. Now, my memory's pretty fuzzy here, but from what I think I remember, he basically goes on to say that because everyone has their own image in their head of what a house should look like, and drawing a house is such an easy thing to do, we probably just drew that image in our head and didn't actually look at the doll's house to see what it looked like. And he got me. That's exactly what I did. I'm pretty sure I remember just drawing the house that I lived in, so I definitely wasn't paying attention to what the doll's house looked like. And I remember he pointed out that there was a round window above the door. There was a door right at the front of the house with a little round window above it, and I just remember that. It stayed in my head for such a long time. And then he went on to mention that you should be looking at what you want to draw the majority of the time, rather than looking at what you are drawing. So 20% of the time, look at the piece of paper you're drawing on, and then the other 80% of the time, look at the subject you're drawing. That one tip completely changed how I draw from that moment on, and I still think about it every time I draw. I will even build houses in The Sims and put a little round window above the front door whenever I make a house that looks like that doll's house. So I feel I can't really mention Mark Spate without also briefly touching upon his death too. And just a quick trigger warning here that I will be talking about mental health and suicide, so skip to this timestamp that I'm putting on the screen now if that's something you can't deal with today. So Mark Spate's life very sadly ended when he died by suicide in April 2008. His fiancée had accidentally overdosed months prior, and it's widely reported that his guilt over her death was something that he struggled to deal with. And I'm only mentioning this here as it's probably the most common thing people reference when talking about him, so I wanted to address that before it becomes the only thing that people talk about when they talk about him. Mark Spate was an artist first and foremost, and that's not something that we should forget about just because he killed himself. And I will always remember him as being this artist that taught me one of the biggest lessons in my life when it comes to art. It was through watching him on Smart that I learned how to draw. And I want to be clear that one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is so that I'm not just brushing it under the carpet. I want to acknowledge that anyone, including celebrities as energetic and lively as Mark Spate was, can struggle with poor mental health, and that people who do struggle with surviving with their mental health shouldn't feel ashamed about seeking help. I also wanted to recognise that if someone who didn't know who Mark Spate was did a Google search for him, his death is probably the first thing that comes up. And I wanted to remind people that he was a person first, an artist first, and that's how I will always remember him. So this Judy Garland portrait, I worked on it for a few hours, I think, for one day in March in 2018. That's 3 years ago. I'm not sure how long the initial sketch took, but finishing it off over the last few weeks has taken almost 21 hours. I'm sure it never used to take me that long to finish a portrait, but I guess I've never tried to fully complete one, like include details in the clothes and the background using this level of detail before. It's also been a while since I did any drawing. I kind of pick it up and put it down every few years or so. It's been 3 years since I did this challenge and haven't really picked up a pencil to draw like this in that time. I think it also took me a long time to do it because I had to keep stopping and starting because I wanted to film this and I only had one battery for my camera, so I was having to stop and charge it every time it ran out, which was like every 90 minutes or so. Also, isn't it so annoying when cameras only get about 20 minutes of footage before stopping recording? It was completely doing my head in. So I'm using the Faber-Castell. I'm just going to call it Faber-Castell from now on, even though it might be Faber-Castell. I'm just going to go with Faber, okay? So I'm using the Faber-Castell 12-piece Castell 9000 art set, which is a set of graphite pencils ranging from 2H, which is on the harder end of the spectrum, up to 8B on the softer end. I also used a few different types of pencil erasers. I really like the ones with the brushes on the ends, as they remind me not to sweep my hand across the picture and smudge everything. I'm not sure the brand of the ones that I'm using, but the eraser in them is pretty soft, so I'm limited to where I can use those in a picture. I also used a double-ended eraser pencil from Faber-Castell called the Perfection 7057. This one has one softer end for, I guess, more softer edges, and then the other one is harder for cleaner, more accurate erasing. I also used a kneadable eraser. I believe mine is from a brand called Koh-I-Noor. It's a soft one, so it's very easy to erase. It looks a bit like blue tack, but it's got slightly different consistency. I don't think you can actually use blue tack in place of it. I've never actually tried that, so maybe. But I like these because you can knead them into a very fine point and use them to get some really small areas like the highlights in the eyes, or like pale hairs, I guess, like short pale hairs. Another erasing tool I have but I didn't use a lot this time is a Derwent Eraser Pen. Mine is a clicky type, but you can get electric type ones. I'm not sure how those work, but I think the electric ones are more accurate, maybe. They also have like smaller eraser parts for them. This clicky one is kind of a bigger eraser, but the great thing about these ones is that they have a low dust, so you're not having to wipe away big bits of eraser after you've used them, and they're refillable too. I also used some blending stumps, I believe they're called, which I like to have in lots of different sizes because it means I'm likely to find I have a clean one because I'm very lazy and I don't want to clean them, which you do by sanding them on a little sanding board. And also, last thing, I really like to draw on smooth paper, and I'm currently working through a Rowney A4 Bristol board, another brand name who I don't know how to pronounce, Dala or Dala. They're an English brand, I believe. But yeah, I really like to use smooth paper, and this one is really nice. So when it comes to art, I really love drawing with just a pencil and paper. Not only do I find it the easiest way for me to do art that I most enjoy, but I love the accessibility of pencils and paper. Like, pencils and paper are everywhere. It's really cheap to just buy a pencil set and like a paper pad, and there you can start doing art. Like, painting can, I guess, be quite expensive depending on the quality of tools and equipment you want to buy, and for me there's a pretty big learning curve to working with paints, and not just paints but like colour, and I've never been able to tackle that. And if you never got into making art until much later in life, trying to figure out where to start can be so daunting, like what to buy and stuff. I just have so much love for a set of pencils and an art pad for that reason. It's so easy to get into, and there's so much you can do with one of those regular like school yellow and black pencils and paper from the printer. You can practice your accuracy in translating real life objects into 2D shapes, because that's pretty much what drawing realism is. It's just lots of different little shapes joined together, and you can also learn how to hold the pencil so you can shade large areas really consistently. There's figuring out anatomy and how certain shapes look different when you change the angle that you're looking at them from, or what lighting can do to change the appearance of someone or something. You don't need all the equipment and all the stuff just to learn how to draw. You could even use like a cotton bud or a Q-tip in place of those blending stumps to get a feel for bringing some blending into your work. But all you really need is just a pencil and some paper. Okay, I hope I haven't bored you all by rambling on. I've put some links to the tools I've used and other important links in the description below. Let me know which of my unfinished portraits you think I should tackle next. I'll see you all next time. Bye!